Okay, so I'm looking here at coming to our senses and trying to talk a little bit about that. I'm looking here at page 50, and he's talking about Winnicott's work on transitional objects. And he's, in some way here, I think Berman is trying to give a kind of cultural, socio-historical psychology, and he wants to avoid an argument that would suggest a kind of universality. That is, he's suggesting that the mirror and certain practices, having to do with the degree to which touch is central to a culture, the degree to which there are kinesthetic values in the culture as opposed to simply visual values in the culture. And here's what he says here and he's talking here about this process of confiscation, right? And he talks about the teddy bear phenomena, and he says the teddy bear or any such object which a child may choose was the intermediary between me and not me. It served to keep inner and outer reality separated and yet related. Winnicott defined transitional objects as, quote, objects that are not part of the infant's body, yet are not fully recognized as belonging to external reality. The TO is an agent of continuity, a defense against anxiety. He says, as such, it has a definite addictive quality for the child. And then he goes on and he talks about how, for Winnicott, right, he says the real sign that the TO was a healthy phenomenon for Winnicott was that if things went well, the TO got decathected over time, and the libidinal energy consequently diffused over the whole cultural field. And then he goes, sort of like this weaning, is again this sort of neo-Freudian weaning out of being polymorphously perverse, overcoming the Oedipus complex, and then fulfilling mature, I guess, normal sexuality in some Freudian sense, right? I guess very similar to that. And he says here, right, in infancy, the teddy bear is the TO. Later on, the child and adult graduates to more sophisticated toys, drugs, alcohol, art, religion, and creative scientific work. The TO is potentially a very powerful concept, for it would seem to be the bridge between what we have been talking about up to now, kinesthetic, somatic, microhistory, and the level of the visible, the stuff that makes it into the newspapers and the history books. And he goes on and he says, right down the middle of that page here on 51, he says, as in the case with the mirror, we have to be careful. We have to be careful about turning the TO into an archetype. And if you go to the bottom then of this page, he sets up this, I guess, three ways that people think about their way of responding to the basic fault and the forms of confiscation that have emerged in culture. And he says here, option one is to abandon the self so that other ceases to be a problem. Option two, attempt to destroy the other, allowing self to reign supreme. And option three, work your way back to a self other relationship that is not founded on opposition or confiscation. Yeah, so this is sort of the strategy that I think he wants, but I think that he wants to suggest that it's so much more than something an individual could do. It has to be a whole collective of people who are collectively coming together and realizing it together and helping. It can be done by individuals who realize it together and start to change their practices and their understanding. But it's not something that just one can do like howling out in the woods and sort of take it over. If you look here as you turn over to 52, he's got this wonderful thing on the guy wearing the Calvin Kleins, and he makes fun of himself carrying his book and how his book has meaning for him. I think the way that I would just want to end uh, the discussion on confiscation and some of this what he's calling microhistory and cultural psychology throughout this is on page 61, right? He says, as in the case of the mirror, we have to be cautious about turning epoch specific situations into transcultural archetypes. As already noted, other cultures and earlier eras did not experience the basic fault in the same way modern Western society does, and some may not have experienced it at all. I have already suggested that the transitional object, the use of which Winnicott believed was inherent in human nature and essential to healthy development, is apparently absent in certain cultures, such as the Yakiwana, as well as among Australian Aborigines who cathect the earth, nature itself, and have no need for substitutes. Now, this notion of cathect the earth itself, this I think is a really fascinating issue. This is something that I think Becker's work moves in that direction. It has to do with feeling oneself deeply, deeply in the gift. And this sort of, and if I when I say that life is a gift, it's a mysterious cycle is the gift. The gift isn't just one gift, it's a countless cycle of gifts. And humans have a need to be connected in a relevant way to that cycle. Touch and touching and rich felt relevance in one's world. See, I think I think it's partly how that's achieved. It has to do though when he says cathect. Um, where's the exact line here? He says, "Who cathect the earth, nature itself, have no need for substitutes." It's sort of like he's suggesting that they don't need any kind of transitional objects. They don't need the particular items to fetishize as if those were the particular sort of not me boundaries. Instead, the earth itself becomes recognized as partly me. I just recently watched that show on becoming ourselves or becoming human. It's on PBS, and it's fascinating. It shows all of the developments that went on through Africa, up through down into Australia, through the Middle East, and then out across the Bering Strait into the Americas, and basically traced the line, the genetic code lines of the various peoples. And this guy's argument, end of the day, was that it's the common bloodline and the DNA line that we should be astonished with, that shows that across all this difference, these people are the same. They're the same line. And I thought, no, what he should have said is that the reason all these people look so different is that the globe itself has so many different regions. The globe itself has mountainous regions and flat plains, and it has cold places and warm places, and places of drought and places of flood and famine. And the world itself is diverse, and that has helped to create people whose body structures and shapes are resonant with nature, to see themselves as part of the world. We're all one, not because we just share in a genetic code line. We're all one because we're places and moments of the earth. Well, I guess I'm running out of time, and I just wanted to say I'm not sure. I might get in a time for one more video. Please, some of those videos have been wonderful that people have posted too, and we do have that channel set up, so get those in. All right. Thanks.